Okay, folks, welcome back to onemanmedia.us. This is Billy Pham talking to you from Lincoln Village, San Antonio, Texas. And this is the second video of today. So as I promised, it's going to be a very important video, and I wanted to give my own angle about depopulation, because absolutely I do have something very unique, and I'm going to explain then why I think we did resolve the problem with the so-called energy crisis. Yeah, because the main problem for the depopulation creature, I do believe that, they are kind of aggressive on the unborn like that only because they think that the earth just cannot handle the big population, and also maybe also a part of it you're gonna play into the eugenic. So first let's gonna take a look at the video from Bill Gates. But I have to have the note right here, yeah, because the first thing the audience needs to know that Bill Gates, since 2013, he is no longer funding the abortion, even for the Planned Parenthood. When he gives the money, and his foundation, right, gives the money to the Planned Parenthood, they still saying that the fund is not for abortion. That is to his credit, but some arguments still saying that, okay, you give the money to the Planned Parenthood, even you say you cannot use that fund for abortion, but so meaning that they have the leverage to move the fund to other needs, and then they're gonna take the other sources, for the abortion. So very much for some arguments I heard on the internet saying that it's very much the same. But for me, I think at least we should give the credit to Bill Gates about it. And one more fact about Bill Gates, I think everyone needs to know. His father was the head of Planned Parenthood, so absolutely his family got a tradition in somehow I can say that, really worrying about the population, or maybe you can argue that they try to improve the people's health, or people's living condition. So that's why they try to attack the problem on the population. So that's why I said that it's arguable about those kind of speculation. But like I said, the only thing, like I want to emphasize that the only thing really disgusting to me is somehow it translated to the law that allowing people to kill the unborn boys, unborn girls. So let's take a look, and also this video is a few years ago. I think it's recorded in 2010. So meaning that before the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation stopped funding abortion. So just to be very clear on that. So okay, take a look with me on this video clip, and then we're gonna talk more about it.
It has four factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these.
Okay, let's stop right there about, of course, his goal was kind of get the CO2 down to zero, the emission down to zero, but Mr. Gates, if you dig a little bit deeper, you know that absolutely we do need the CO2. That's the first, my first argument. And the second thing that, especially just be more specific, right? The CO2 very, very important for our planet because, of course, all kind of plants gonna take the CO2 in the process of photosynthesis. So, and then the plant gonna release the O2, only O2, not C. So they take in the CO2, release the O2 for us, the oxygen for us to breathe. So that's why I say also CO2 very important for us. And the second thing is related to the CO2, absolutely the CO2 is only, I did some research, say the scientists saying that only around 100 years, yes, it's gonna be dissolved or transformed to some other forms. So meaning that we don't need to get the emission down to zero, absolutely not. And of course, Mr. Gates also emphasized on the population right in the equation. And I say, this is somehow different from Elon Musk's text because Elon Musk saying that the population gonna reduce. Now it's still, increasing, but probably gonna start to reduce around the year 2050. So I think that it just makes a lot of sense because take a look at Japan, take a look at Europe, and all the developed nations. Eventually, the population will go down. So I think I'm all for, just like Mr. Bill Gates, just go somehow. We're gonna improve people's living condition. We're gonna improve their health. We're gonna improve their knowledge in education, right? So that's why everything like that is good. But when somehow, I'm not sure this is the main forces. I don't think it's from Bill Gates, but from the hidden dirty beings that they have. That's why before I did mention that if you ask Bill Gates the question, are you the richest man in the world? He's gonna laugh until he falls off his chair. Because why? Because as smart as he is, absolutely he knows he's just a really small force. Even on the paper or on the surface, he is he is actually the richest man in the world, but the fact is not. And okay, so right back into his equation, we know for sure, right? We know already now all developed countries like Japan, Europe, and then the trend is gonna be South Korea. So and also related to China, one-child policy. I'm going to talk more about that later. But we can stop right here to take a look. Okay, at my prompter, what I have left off on a prompter since the last video. and we're gonna see what I'm gonna talk about next in terms of depopulation agenda. And I want to remind people that I am not like Alex Jones because he's really deep, very, very deep into the conspiracy theory. But because I saw some videos from his channel saying something I think is kind of very disgusting in the labs, and for that, of course, since I'm not sure, I'm not going to say that is correct or not, but it sounds like the Alex Jones channel absolutely go very, very deep into the conspiracy theory. And for me, I think I am naturally very, very balanced and very, very, true to myself. So that's why I try to say something I'm very sure about it. So now talk about the U.S. versus China in the depopulation propaganda. So this one absolutely, personally, I was personally affected as a Vietnamese, and how the Vietnam War ended. So after contemplating, after did a lot of research on this one, because I am the person who was growing up in Vietnam, and as I mentioned before, I did hear a lot about the rumor saying that the Chinese Vietnamese, they are very, very aggressive on the unborn girls also, and because they are, for the Chinese people, I want to note that they very much in their family, they look like at all costs they want a boy at all costs. So that's why it's very important for them. So I heard a rumor that even when they give birth and it's not as they expected. If that's a girl, even they kill the girl baby at that point. So, but at least I want to say that of course, I didn't have any true evidence. So that's why I say only the rumor. And one more story about that, and this one you can verify by. I'm going to tell the story first. Back then in 2000, around 2001, I remember, in my choir, they started some kind of conversation saying the Taiwanese people, they also using the fetus to do some kind of, the cooking, just in simple term, okay, just use just the plain word like the fetus soup. That's very disgusting. And at that point, I still remember I raised my voice, in the what is the email group of the Teresa choir, and it was moderated by my friend at the time. Now I consider that I have no friends, absolutely, but at the time his name is Long Han, and you can verify with him even at this point to see. And I think later on I will send him an email asking that if he still has the chatting between the members of the choir related into the incident, because someone started a conversation about, and also sent out the pictures. It's not just the conversation only, And at that time, I did voice out saying that this is, I did very, take a very cautious approach. I did remember I say, if it's true, so it's very disgusting. But, one more time, that is related to Taiwanese. So that's why once again, I did say in the previous video, I had some sort of, the history with the Taiwanese people. Even over there, one more time, I want to tell the brief story about when at the time I was there during the transit for my airplane to Vietnam. Yes, they keep me there for a day, I think 1 day or two. Even my air ticket, shouldn't wait for that long, only few hours right at the airport, and then transit to other fly to Vietnam. But when at the time they keep me there, and yes, I heard at least I got the sense that the people we call in the central of Vietnam, especially, I think that from the pronunciation, I know that they could be from the Bình Định area or maybe the Đà Nẵng area. So they signal me that maybe those people working very closely with the Taiwanese people in my case, and later on the bus, back to the airport to fly to Vietnam, one of the white men, I want to specify a white man, talking to me about whether I want to move the capital of Vietnam to Đà Nẵng, and so everything played very well with the things I told everyone before about my sister herself at the time told me that actually if the hidden dirty beings have all of my phone conversation during the beginning of 2007. During that time, I still remember I called back from the motel in Auckland. In Auckland at the time, I was prepared to fly off the US, and I thought at that time I'm not gonna be ever gonna go back to US again. So in that conversation, yes, my sister at the time, Tran, told me about they wanted me to be the president, and absolutely not the president of the U.S. Right? She not out of her mind like that, because I'm absolutely an immigrant, yellow skin and flat nose, so there's no chance about the U.S. president. So absolutely, she talked about the presidency of Vietnam. So that's everything play together. Just make a lot of sense. Make a lot of sense if you follow. So that's why I say that personally, affect to my life, and also. One more fact about the depopulation agenda, U.S. versus China, was related to the incident that President Nixon at the time shook hand. That's symbolically we can say shook hand with the Chinese government. So after that, the U.S. abandoned the south of Vietnam, the Republic of the South Vietnam, and my father was a part of it. So that's why I say one more time, deeply affected my family and myself, and again one more time, my father and his almost 15 years in the communist prison. So the incident related to President Nixon, I do believe it had something to do with the one-child policy of China later on, only around, if I remember correct, China after that, actively and very aggressively also reform their economic system. Also at the same time, try to have a very aggressive policy like one child per family policy. That's why I want to combine. But once again, this is only the theory from my research, from my take only. It's not, I don't want to say that 100% sure. But the theory from my research is what? China and the US also were shaking hands at that time to the population. So that's why China later on, came up with the aggressive policy like that. And maybe the promise from the US at that time is absolutely US gonna be behind the economic reformation of China. So that's the reason why I always telling people that, I've been telling people for the economic growth of China, someone saying that it could be the threat to the US. I say absolutely nothing. We can collapse the China's economy anytime we want. So that's why something is deeply troubling. But like I say, only my angle, only my views, my take on the whole thing I want to put together, and it does make a lot of sense to me. That's also the reason, why when the Nixon administration, yes, he got a good relationship with the Chinese government at the time. So absolutely, the U.S. government at the time was kind of take very lightly on the Vietnam situation. So they used a lot of excuses to pull out the troops from Vietnam. So that's the reason. Yes, the communists from the north is could very easily win over the south. So, but once again, like I say, my take and just give all of other groups another angle to the Vietnam War, and what did it have to do with the depopulation agenda, and also how it's gonna like affect the environment, the whole ecosystem of the world. Yeah, because I absolutely think that up to this point, China even look like is growing in a very good mode, right, for growing economically. But I'm not really sure how long they can sustain, and what is gonna be the next disaster come from the one-child policy. Yeah, because nowadays the Chinese men just of course they have the shortage of the women over there, so they have to look to other nations to get married to another lady in different cultures and countries, and that's why I think one more angle, maybe that is the U.S. strategy to internationalize Chinese people. So they have no choice. They have no choice because they have the shortage of the woman, right? So meaning that they have to go out to get married to other countries. So that's the very good way to internationalize China. So but only my views are not really, because everything like that, absolutely everything like that, they're not gonna speak in terms of diplomacy on even on TV. They're not allowed to mention. Only me, like crazy enough to talk about it. So that's why just keep that in mind. Remember, China one child policy, depopulation, Nixon presidency, Vietnam War, and the whole thing about also the internationalized China. So everything you can put in one package, everything. So that's why about my father and his 15 years in prison, I think I say enough already in the previous video. So and I think now we're gonna also take a look at how Vatican Vatican has anything to do with the depopulation too. So take a look at this video clip, and I'm going to explain it briefly.
We need at some point to have a limited number of people, which is why Pope Francis and his three most recent predecessors have always argued that you should not have more children than you can bring up properly. A panelist at a Vatican-run workshop on how to save the natural world. It's interesting that
for my opinion, I do believe that, absolutely nothing wrong to tell people that, yes, if you cannot afford or you cannot raise your children, properly and provide them proper education and the reasonable living standard, yet you shouldn't, give birth to a lot of children. That is absolutely nothing wrong. But something wrong when the Pope said that. Something's wrong, deeply wrong, because according to the Bible, absolutely the Bible encouraged the Catholic believers that, you should give birth. So your children will be just like a star in the sky, and just like the sand under the beach. So that's why I say this is deeply conflicting with the Bible's teaching. That's all I want to say. So whatever you want to take, but for me, I think it's normal. But when the Pope say that, absolutely something is troubling. Something is troubling. And even more creepy when I heard from the Catholic explaining to me about the abortion in general. So I'm not shy to even to spoil specifically who. Okay. First, my ex-friend, once again, that his name is Long Han. He didn't say specifically, but again, this is a telephone conversation when I came back to San Jose around 2010, 2011 at that time. So you can track it down because I think the Hidden Dirty Beings have the record. The Hidden Dirty Beings have my maybe all of my telephone conversations. So you can track that down, and I still remember I talked against him on that because I did even ask. So you say you said that you just let them, kind of, go deep into the shit, just in general, go deep into the shit, and then later on maybe they're gonna wake up later. But for that friend at the time, I don't believe he said specifically, but just try to give me the meaning that, okay, just let the bad people, kill their own children in that angle, and that is not really specific. But from my cousin in Vietnam, it is specific. He again, his name is Tuệ, okay, my first cousin, okay. So he did try to convince me to just stay out, he said that I did enough already, so just stay out, so not to be involved in that stuff, in going against abortion anymore. So he did try to explain that, just I don't remember exact word, but once again, it's just like, okay, the people who do that, so the bad people, so just let them do it, something like that. So at least from two Catholics, explain to me about the idea behind the depopulation stuff. I think that's even more creepy to me. So that's why I say it absolutely has something to do with the Vatican in terms of depopulation. So I just try to give out my angle, so hopefully anyone can get something out of it. Okay, so back to my prompter once again. I did say it before, just one more time about Obama. Obama absolutely encouraged people to kill the unborn, and unfortunately, Trump stepped on the corpses, to his presidency. Because why? Because see, since he took the office, nothing major about, try to stop or at least the possible abortion. And also the fact was, in his debate with Secretary Clinton, he did emphasize the word babies, and it's not okay with him. It's not okay with him to kill the unborn babies like that. And I don't know, maybe he got a lot of pressure, so that's why he couldn't do anything. But still, he still got a lot of time, right? Just once again, try to give him the benefit of the doubt. So maybe later on he's gonna come back and truly work on the issue. I really hope he's gonna be converted too, because I still seeing President Trump as first the fake Christian and the fake conservative, and also his presidency is very big win for the progressive movement. So I want to say that absolutely the progressive people, you guys win bigly in terms of the Trump's presidency, because he has been as a progressive and as a Democrat for a long time, and I don't think for the old people can change easily like that. So that's why for me, I do think that Trump presidency is compromised. But who's not, right? Who's not in this world nowadays? I don't know. Who's not compromised? Maybe only me. So that's, everything together. I came to the conclusion is, nothing but eugenic, nothing but eugenic. And I do want to explain more about the why I did see this as the eugenic movement. And in the next video, I will dig right into, try my best to explain that. Nowadays, we don't have the energy crisis. We did solve the energy crisis already. Only problem now we have is what? The human greeds. The human greeds. We just ignore all kind of moral development, just like Einstein suggested, and we go for the money only. So that's why that one we didn't solve. But for the energy crisis, promise I will prove to you we did solve the energy crisis. Not like the depopulation creatures advertise. No, it's not like that. So stay tuned. I will be back in the next video very soon. Maybe in another hour, I'll take a break and then go back to record that video right away. So, okay, one more time, folks. So long, and wish everyone peace, and be very thoughtful and be very careful to consider your own children, your own great-grandchildren, how they're going to live in a very, very dirty social environment. Absolutely not good. So please be very thoughtful about it, right? All right. So one more time is okay. I just want to exit properly. So all right. So long until the next video.